We actually start our meetings and we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. I love it. And then we sit down in the chair and then they ask, hey, so what do you do? We throw up a little bit, we start sweating, and then we start saying crazy things. We start saying like, "So we're gonna pay your employees cash in the event of illness or injury." And then they're like, "What?" And then they're like, "Okay, I'll see who's interested in cash for whatever the hell you're talking about." That is a lot of our conversations. Why do I know that? It's because I've done that 1,000 times. Welcome back to LA Legends, where Aflac pros sharpen their skills, swap stories, and build the LA South market one legend at a time. I am Michael Fisher.
And I'm Michelle Lee. Today, we're going to focus mainly on the decision maker conversation from the upfront contract, handling objections, and more importantly, after the S and the scope of work agreement.
Absolutely. I'm very excited because we're going to dive right into some rapid fire stuff. Best overcoming objections, best closing statements, the stuff that Michelle and I have closed 1,000+ groups utilizing this stuff. So we are going to dive into best practices that we use in the field, have used in the field, or we have stolen from the best of the best. So I will encourage everybody on here to actually watch this on YouTube or Spotify because we are going to be sharing this. But you could also view this in our vault. And if you don't know where the vault is, ask your DSC or RSC. So let's dive right into this, Michelle. So I'm going to kick this part off because I always like people to think about a mindset perspective of before I'm running an employer conversation, what are some of the things that are happening industry wide across our country? One of the things that I always realized and noticed inside of Aflac is that sometimes we're focused on selling Aflac instead of just focused on what is happening in the competitive landscape. So, one thing I really love for people to know outside of Aflac is just that right now, companies, and this is a survey, in 2026, companies, 75% of them are at least offering one voluntary benefit, and that is something that is employee paid. And 90% of companies with 500 or plus employees offer a voluntary benefit, including critical illness and other things that we offer. So, what does that tell us? That means that most companies are already leveraging voluntary benefits, or smaller companies, they're definitely going to leverage voluntary benefits and going to start leveraging it. Now, who is the largest voluntary benefits company in the world? Well, we work for that company. Yes, it is Aflac. So my mindset when I'm walking into every single employer conversation is, hey, if they're not offering voluntary benefits, they are going to within the next year or two, based on the industry. They should probably do it with Aflac, and they should probably do it with me because I'm pretty cool. I want everybody to have that kind of mindset. So let me turn to you, Michelle. What in your mind do you like to have this going through your head before a employer or DM conversation?
Outside of the information in itself, I think the confidence and the buy-in into the brand that you guys are representing goes a long way. So it's not just the idea, okay, I'm learning something new, I'm joining a new company, I'm saying this specific to my new associates, but recognizing that brand recognition so you have that confidence and that buy-in and who you are representing when you go out goes a long way in that mindset. And you just displayed everything spot on to being the number one provider in this industry and the fact that most companies are ready to go,
Yeah.
realizing that they need something like us already. Now, whether they fully understand it or not, that's our job to do that education bit. And so I
Yep.
think gearing yourself up with some of what one, the confidence, and two, that brand recognition. So you stay and you can, it conveys that message across the wall goes a long way. But what we bring in, yeah, I would definitely leverage some, let's say, third party other indicators to help drive that message along as well. And that's what we use for a lot of our elevation articles, which
Yeah.
separate story.
Separate story. So I think that that's a huge one. So walking into this, it's having that decision of like, hey, they're going to be doing this. They're going to be offering voluntary benefits. It's just a matter of whether or not I'm making it easy enough for them to do business with me. And I'll tell you, Aflac does not do the best job of telling us the story of what they've really done for small businesses, which they've invested millions of dollars in research with our Aflac Workforces report. They've done an incredible job by making all of our business solutions no cost, even though we don't even hit that very much, but subsidized group rates on all of our products, guaranteed issue plans, which are amazing, providing the Section 125 document that allows companies to actually pre-tax things. And again, doing all that at no cost. And now we even offer a benefit at no cost, so they could get in the benefits game like a telehealth. That's amazing. So our job is to not just vomit that on everybody, but it is being able to effectively say, hey, we're trying to make sure that small businesses are able to be equipped in this environment. Yeah,
You
Michelle.
did bring up a really good point of driving the value we bring in that partnership. And I want to switch some of the words around that you just used. I wholeheartedly believe that if the value you bring comes down to the verbiage you use.
Yeah.
So, I too so qualm with that no cost verbiage versus Aflac sponsored, Aflac funded. When it comes to an Aflac funded, Section 125 or an Aflac funded benefits to get you started in that game, or the ability to bring in group and subsidized rates as well. Clarity builds confidence. That's why every enrollment starts with a scope of work agreement, a simple way to align expectations, timelines, and responsibilities between the agent and business owner. Scope of work, clear commitments, smoother enrollments, stronger partnerships.
Now, I want to turn it to you on this one. So I understand what we're doing. And honestly, business owners, they have a lot going on. I mean, they are bombarded constantly. And when we finally earn that time with them, I believe, in my opinion, we need to have a very strong foundation of what we're actually there to accomplish and make it very, very clean. So we are, being able to walk out with either a very, very strong yes, because we are genuinely helping that company, or being able to emotionally move on and be able to say, like, hey, this company doesn't get it, or I didn't properly convey it. So let's talk a little bit about what that looks like. Can you talk us through this upfront contract? Because this is definitely going to pay off later.
This is the first non negotiable aspect when you start a conversation with the decision maker. And it comes in two pieces, as I'm gonna display. So the upfront contract, I'm gonna just run through my verbiage of it. It's not exactly the same, but it's okay, but still conveys what we're trying to get across. So, hey, Michael, before we dive into things, I want to make sure that at the end of this meeting, if it doesn't make sense for you, are you comfortable telling me no?
Sure, absolutely.
But if it does, if an Aflac partnership does seem like a fit of how we can make a positive impact for you and your company, can we just make sure we pencil in the next steps at the end of this meeting? Does that sound fair?
Absolutely.
So you set it up. The first one is you do the takeaway. Because I think when you come into these meetings, the business owners were like, oh, I have to give them a decision. But when you take away of giving them an option to say no, you get your first yes to begin with.
Yeah,
And two, it removes that like tenseness and it lets them to, oh, shoulders drop and actually be open to hearing what you're going to share with them. And the second one is defined if you see the value, then we just actually walk away with the next steps at the end of this meeting. And that's usually yes or second date on the calendar. So that
yeah.
goes back to what you and I always talk about. You get a yes, no, or a second date on the calendar. And that's the only three things you can walk away with at the end of the meeting.
Absolutely. And just to overemphasize the power of this upfront contract, in the very first meeting that I ever ran, and I went with my CIT, and actually I let him run it. And it was a family friend, and they had 25 employees. I was super excited. It was my only real sphere of influence one, but there was this awkwardness because I brought in some other guy and he was doing his best, but like he didn't really push. My dad's friend was like, yeah, you know what? This sounds pretty good. Let me think about it. Give me a call next week. And rightfully so, my CIT at that time was like, okay, yeah, you know what? Sounds good. And that's the end of that conversation. Then I started having awkward texts with my dad's friend, like, hey, so do you want Aflac? And it was awkward, terrible, never brought in a CIT again. Why I'm sharing that story is for my DSCs, CITs, or new associates, if you have a sphere of influence conversation, think about this upfront contract. "Hey, Michelle, because we know each other, I want to take all the pressure off of this. So at the end of this conversation, if you decide it's just not a good fit for the company, are you comfortable with just letting me know, just no? Are you okay with that?" Okay,
Yeah,
cool. And if you decide that it actually is a good fit for your company, yes is going to look like is just us putting next steps on the calendar. So if it ends up being a yes, that's what it's gonna look like. Are you okay with that?
yeah,
Cool. All right. So those are those things where it just makes it less awkward, makes people relax. You can do that with large account meetings. You can do
mhm,
that with sphere of influence meetings. You can do that with anybody at all points. What you're doing is you're making it so you're having a very transparent conversation because getting a no is actually okay.
absolutely. So even because if you do this, let's say you even, mess up a little bit on the upfront contract, but at the end of the meeting, you need something to pull back to if they say they want to think about it. And if you don't say this, it gets that awkward situation that you described with that CIT. You
Yeah.
don't know where to go from there. I think everybody likes an agenda of how we're going to end this and see the end goal of that meeting. So if you set it up front, like you said, it allows them to relax. And but if something comes at the very end of the meeting where yes, it moves forward, or I want to think about it, or I have a business partner, you bring it right back to your upfront contract, and it holds them accountable to the meeting as well, without feeling that pressure of that accountability at the same time. So
100%.
it's not
Yeah,
negotiable. So
absolutely. It pays off in a huge way. So
So let's talk through. So upfront contract ends the engage. Now we head into discover. Talk me through what are just a quick note of the why discover portion is so important, and then a little bit of guide before we head into our handling objection section.
yeah, honestly, I feel like we overcomplicate Discover a lot, and my biggest one on Discover, again, is just reading the room and reading the audience, but if you get somebody to verbalize their issue themselves, you already won. So you can tell somebody, "Oh, yeah, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong," but if they're the ones that are actually saying like, "Hey, you know what? I'm actually going through this." So for Discover for me, when we do the fact finding stuff, I actually like them to know that, hey, I'm going to do some base level fact finding because I don't want to talk about things that don't really apply to your business. So we're just going to dive into this really quickly, Michelle. Just a couple quick questions. Based on your company right now, roughly about how many employees? Okay, fantastic. Can you tell us a little bit about the demographics? When we're talking about company culture, could you describe that to me? Like, what are some of the things that you guys do to help incentivize. So I keep it very, very soft front end. Say it's fact finding. Hey, are you able to offer anything at this point? Oh, you know what? Medi-cal too expensive. Nobody's interested. Great, 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 fantastic. I'm not getting stuck in the weeds on any of them. I'm just taking in that information. The biggest one is that setup where we start trying to find some pain points and utilizing that site seller of just saying instead of being like, "Hey, Michelle, what's wrong with you in your business?" But I always like to say, "Hey, I don't know if any of this applies to any of you whatsoever, but as Aflac is really uncovered with our 500,000 current business clients and, the companies that we survey every single year, these are a couple of the challenges that businesses are facing right now. Now, let's take a look at these four. Out of those, I mean, which one of those is jumping out at you the most? And actually saying, "Oh, I don't know, I don't suppose," that is actually inviting them to be like, "Well, no, actually, competition is really rough. Oh, you know what? Doing business, right now with competition, it is hard. Oh, rising cost? There's never a time a business isn't gonna be like, 'Oh, yeah, rising costs.' No, I love when costs go up. It's amazing." Right, yeah, I hope that they continue to go up. So those are just I'd say the ways I always try to play it off like, "Oh, yeah," but, like, it actually is just trying to create that comfort level where they are like, "Oh, no, actually, yeah," and weirdly, all 4 of those things are an issue for me. How about you, Michelle? Let's talk your favorite Discover.
Yeah, you're pretty spot on. I'm going to echo you of keeping it soft, fact finding, and keeping it quick, right? You're not spending that much time in that fact finding of, the employee count to the benefits because the meat of the conversation, right? And I use it in sales with the steak on your plate or the piece of fish or chicken, you're at the main course is going to be that business trend side. A previous trainer that I've worked with that talks through that as well as like, hey, quite a few of my recent clients or the businesses that I currently work with mention that, these are some of the trends that have been affecting them, especially this one. I don't know, but is that something that affects you as well? And
Mhm.
kind of letting them know, one, they're not alone in that situation without blatantly saying you're not alone, but giving them the space to actually pinpoint what's going to be that priority for them as well. And you guys can see on this business overview, all that stuff is spelled out for you guys right there too.
A lot of this stuff you can research, and we don't want you to get overcomplicated and be like, "Tell me your employee demographics, age, bilingual, what are they?" This is stuff where it's like, "Hey, guide through it. This is something for you to breathe and just give you to something to write on." But also, it allows you to be like, "Okay, am I on track with things?" So even though that this general discovery and general benefits area takes the biggest part of the page, I would actually say that those parts are probably
Oh,
smallest of the conversation, and the rest of it is really just having conversations and utilizing these set pieces of just being like, "Hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that? How long has that been a problem?" These things are not offering the solution there, breathing as they allow talking. If they start saying like, "Oh, you know what? I've had employees leaving because of companies that offer benefits. They have been taking all of my employees that I train really well." Don't be like, "Good news. I'm gonna sell you Aflac and all of that will go away." So to breathe and just be like, "Okay, all right. So how long has that been a problem? Have you tried to fix it? Great. How'd that work? What happens in the next couple of years if you're not able to fix it?" So these are things that it allows them to start giving you those ammunition, as Michelle says in sales school, arrows in the quiver that you can
yeah.
start using as you're closing down the road.
And keep in mind too, guys, those trends that we have in the site seller of rising costs, maintaining competitiveness, attracting, retaining, product route, they're all connected, meaning one of them, two of them will probably connect with another one. So don't just focus on one.
Right.
You want more shots, right, at bullseye. So I know we try to, I think, as we are learning this conversation, what I observe, we try to rush through the conversation. Like we're just trying to get through it. But you be realize in real life, when you're sitting across a decision maker ahead of a company, sometimes they want to talk things through, but you have to
Yep.
be asking those expanding questions to actually get through that as well. And so when you are able to do a strong enough discover and dig deep and put a round number to it, I'm gonna go ahead and move to the guide section and why this section. Now, this is where your solutions actually come into play, right? Where you're reinstating the priority, meaning you're on the same page. Hey, Michael, it sounds like attracting, retaining, or high turnover is your biggest, pain right now. But bringing in top talent is your biggest priority. Would you agree? And it's
Mhm.
costing you roughly about 10 to 15,000 over the last 6 months because of your cost of ads to time spent in hiring and training those people. That sound about right?
Yeah.
Well, and then you go through your recommendation. My recommendation is to actually build a partnership with the Aflac to increase a compensation package to help you have an attraction tool, right? To bring that top talent in and be able to compete in your marketplace today. And by in doing so, you're going to be able to help out your current team as well by, creating a higher loyalty, make sure that they're more present when they're at work. So it increases your productivity at the same time. How we actually do that through a complimentary business account, right? And unlocks subsidized group rates. We're going to help you get started in the benefits game by sponsoring an Aflac program, which is one of these four that you can choose from. And Aflac is sponsoring the Section 125 plan to help you get started to be able to pre-tax as with a simple payroll integration as well. Now, it's gonna drive what you're looking for, right? To hire those two people that you mentioned that you're trying to replace, all right? And the attraction tool for that, and it's going to be quite lucrative for you to help you grow that company that you're trying to do as well. Can you see how leveraging these tools can make a positive impact on your company?
Yeah.
You should have said no, but
No, I do not. No, I wanted to highlight something, Michelle, because I think that this is where a lot of people, they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is tough, can I get through this?" But this is where that site seller again, it allows you to breathe and gives you visuals. So one of the things that are on that site seller, it's the through a complimentary business account, it unlocks subsidized group rates, which is our group rates and underwriting, Aflac sponsor benefit, and Section 125. That's going to allow us to pre-tax. So I may have been in 500 meetings, a business owner at a certain point just being like, okay, I get it. I need something. I need to do something. Like, what do you guys do? And this is that moment where this is what we do. Well, through a complimentary business account, we're going to unlock a couple things. Subsidized group rates at the biggest organizations, LAUSD, LA County, Fortune 500 companies that they offer these same benefits and same underwriting. We're unlocking that for you. In fact, in addition to that, because you're a smaller business, we are actually going to help you get in the benefits game by sponsoring a program and providing the documents to make it so you're able to be a little bit more profitable by just adding something that actually is going to allow you to pre-tax all this stuff. So at the end of the day, it's going to allow you to be more competitive. It's going to allow you to attract and retain the best people. And you know what? We're going to actually handle this stuff from A to Z. So does that sound, Michelle, like something that is going to be make a positive impact on your company?
Yeah.
All right. So the way that we could do this is one of two ways. And this is again going employer contribution or employee funded. Again, we are flipping that site seller over and it's just making it completely transparent to them of there's a couple ways that we could do this. We could either start off by doing this with $75 contribution, 50, 25, and or at the end of it, our fallback is no, like, hey, free business account, whatever, on a completely voluntary basis.
Employee funded.
Employee
Sorry, I'm
funded.
gonna change your verbiage
Employee
there.
funded. Yes, employee funded.
Come on,
I
Mark
still close
direction.
1,000 accounts with it. I'm fine. So I'll tell you the last one with this that I just want people to like really, really drill down. This is where I feel like we start panicking a little bit because maybe they say, "Hey, on our closing line, Michelle, like, yeah, this sounds pretty good. Let me think about it. Let me take it in," because immediately they're like, "Oh, I don't want to do extra work. This might take a bunch of time for me." So at that point, if they are starting to give us some delays and being like, "Oh, yeah, so this sounds good. Why don't you send me something?" Where do we leverage the upfront contract again?
So that's that same point where, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, my experience, a lot of other business owners that have told me that they want to think about it usually means no. I'm okay. Remember at the beginning of this meeting, I said, if you want to tell me no, I'm okay with it. And we can just part, as friends and call it a day. But, and this is where that's why the upfront contract is so important to be able to
Yeah.
leverage back.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
it is
love that
all of that.
spicy. I love the spicy, and I'll honestly tell everybody that we've had a million of these where, by the way, this is where the selling actually begins. The rest of it is kind of just like, hey, you're following through a flow, but the
Consulting. Yeah.
selling is right here. So when somebody says that of like, oh, you know what? So I want to think about it, blah blah. Hey, Michelle, at the start of this meeting, I told you if this wasn't gonna be a good fit for your business, I'm absolutely okay with just taking that as a no. But if you decide that, hey, this could be a positive next step, what we're going to do, and this is where I'm personally comfortable with pulling out my scope of work or actually turning over the scope of work. This is how we're going to get started. If you're comfortable with telling me no, that's completely fine. If it's yes, we're going to be going through this scope of work. What path are we going down? So you're either again, some people might think that's a hard close. It is just pushing that one forward so you can start getting objections. The one that I will just say again and again with our team, we don't get objections because we stay in the safe zone.
This podcast is sponsored by Scope of Work. Do you want to close accounts? Do you want to actually have the best conditions possible? You want to make sure that you see new hires? Well, use Scope of Work. Recommended by many doctors and all AFLAC agents in Los Angeles. Scope of Work.
A lot of times, if a business owner, 9 out of 10 times, if they're like, Michelle, it sounds pretty good. Give me a call on Monday and we'll see if we can lock this bad boy down. I've made this mistake. You've made this mistake. We've say, okay. And like, that's not going to happen. It doesn't work. So before we dive into overcoming some of these objections, which you just did, I wanted to ask you personally, when you were a DSC, and I know you still go out of the field, what have you done to keep yourself grounded where you don't wuss out in that moment and you actually push through and start overcoming the objections? Where's your mindset at in that moment?
Well, funny enough, I think it's at the very beginning, I'm assuming the sale to begin with. Part of it's because we've ran so many of these and in the practice and failing forward so often that I think in the position that we're in today, and people have to go through that, right? They've got to fail forward, fail fast to get that confidence of, you know what, I'm assuming the sale. And it comes down into what I teach and I've gotten a lot better at, which is why verbiage and the focus of that conversation is so important. So I'm focusing on what it does for the decision maker, the business owner at the end of the day. So I'm very cognizant of the verbiage I'm using versus trying to prevent the objections from coming up because I'm focusing so heavily on what it does for the bottom line of that company. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say at the beginning of the conversation because I already planned and know if I use the right verbiage, I'm gonna get the bottom line that I'm looking for, which is that yes, no, or asking or that second date onto the calendar.
You nailed the biggest one that I think is the repetition so many times, and you don't need to practice this on your prospects. You with a peer can be hard as hell and practice
Mhm.
this every single week over and over and over and over and over. And you'll never, ever even flinch in this moment because you guys have practiced so hard with it with each other and coach each other up. That's huge, and you just that's number 1. The second one, and I know that for the 9 people still listening to this, you know what I'm talking about when I tell you I've touched this hot stove so many damn times of walking away with nothing and being like and walking away with good feelings, and my bills did not get paid, that it's just I was done with touching that stove. So for my DSCs, CITs, or new associates, it's don't touch the stove anymore. This is that moment where stop walking away with a good feeling and have that conversation that Michelle just had. Hey, at the start of this meeting, we did say if you didn't see that it was gonna be a good fit, totally comfortable with getting a no, but if you do wanna move forward, this is what it's gonna look like, and start talking through. We could do this one of 2 ways. We can do complete employer contribution, or we can do an employee-funded one. Either way, you are going to be in a much better situation than at the start of this conversation where, you don't have any of the tools and resources that we discussed. So, which path would you like to go down? If they say no, then we can keep on going. But anyways,
So, remember, there's a second date we can walk away with as well. So it isn't just a yes, this is how we're
yeah,
going to move forward, and you're walking away with enrollment dates, but it's also a second date to come back, which is a-okay to walk away with, but it's not call me on this date and time. No, it's a I'll be back here to see you, Michael, on Tuesday at 9 so we can actually finish up the rest of this conversation.
I am so happy you brought that up. So this is here's my one that towards the end, and you and I think we perfected this in our region. We called it the enrollment coordination meeting, where we had the scope of work agreement pre-filled out. We put the company's name on top of it. We put the effective date. We left employer contribution or employee funded. We left that part usually blank unless we wanted to put $25 or 25 or 75. You could put some options. We would check the box of the Aflac sponsor program. We'd check the box of what we were going to do. We would check the box of whether we wanted individual or group meetings followed by one-on-one. But we actually had most of this stuff, so we would print out one for us and one for them. And what we would do on that is just in that enrollment coordination meeting, we are just walking them through our close with amazing enrollment conditions. So I will tell you on the spot, our team probably was not the best at single meeting close, but we were very good at getting a provide the value, discover the need, went through guide, went through the baseline of execute, and then saying, hey, we're going to pause here. We're going to come back tomorrow or come back on Friday. And we're going to go over what we're going to call an enrollment coordination meeting. And hey, at the end of that meeting, you can still tell us no. It's completely fine. But the rest of it is, if it is a yes, we're just going to run through our scope of work agreement, uh, set up our expectations, and then move from there. So that is a huge one for us.
So you bring up a really good point too. I'm going to go right back to the objection. I want to think about it, or well, that's really a big one. You guys, business owners are busy. They're busy. So you can easily say, hey, Michael, I understand that you want to think about it. At the very beginning, if you do see, that like it could be a fit or a value to your company, remember we say to pencil that second date, because ultimately you're busy, I'm busy as well. So avoid that phone tag back and forth, which you don't have time for and I don't have time for. And then
Yeah.
being comfortable enough, because you get enough practice to actually say that to them as well. And then keeping that in mind of that phone tag, right? You're busy, I'm busy, that kind of verbiage, because they are. We don't need to chase each other. I
Yeah.
understand that.
You
Yeah.
just nailed the biggest one, a time commitment type challenge. That's probably the number one objection that even if they're not verbalizing it, they're thinking it anyways. And I think that you actually saying, hey, because I don't want to play phone tag, because we don't want to do any of that stuff, all we're gonna need is one more date and time on your calendar. So here's my biggest one though, that I think that we make a mistake on, of just getting a handoff to somebody else. So if somebody is like, hey, you know what, time is actually my issue here. Realistically, Michelle, you're after the decision made, you're pretty much done. I just need you to introduce me to somebody who's gonna help me just orchestrate the enrollment. I'll just need a date and time 2 weeks out just to review the results. Do you have your calendar in front of you? And that's it. That's the close. That's moving forward. You're done. The other one is just saying like, "Oh, yeah, I met Michelle on the way in, or I met Savannah on the way in. She knows what's happening here. Would you mind introducing me to her? And then she'll be the one that I could actually just coordinate the rest of this with." So these are just like things that over time you get a little bit better at. But I'll say for me as an organization, I feel like our first big step is this upfront contract, reinforcing it, getting the no.
Let's go over to the other one I think that comes up the most frequently in
Okay.
in an objection, which is the fact that my employees won't be interested.
Ooh, okay.
That I believe that one comes up more often than the time commitment one, at least in my experience too, that learn, fail forward, fail fast when I was an associate. I think that came up a lot. Then part of it comes down to the verbiage we're using and the focus of that conversation. And business owners today are just thinking in a different capacity. So, hey,
Yeah.
Michael, Michael, why don't you talk through, my employees won't be interested.
Okay, so I'm gonna say this one, not a popular opinion, but this is what Michelle's been talking about this whole time. If they are bringing this one up, what did I do in my conversation, Michelle?
You focused, you turn the priority to the employees instead of what it does for the business owner and their bottom line.
Okay, so that's the biggest one. If they're asking, I'll talk to the employees and see who's interested. What does that actually have to do with the fact that if they are going to be in business, they're going to be leveraging this, whether it's through us, a payroll company in a couple of years, another insurance broker, they will be leveraging voluntary benefits as a whole, no matter what. That's just a foregone conclusion that's going to happen. So employee interest has nothing to do with any of this. In fact, so much so that Aflac is sponsoring and funding a benefit. What are we talking to employees about interest about? Hey, Michelle, are you interested in having the most amazing telehealth program funded completely for your entire household? Yes, for sure. Do you want to have access to the same compensation programs as other Fortune 500 employers offer? Yeah, that sounds pretty freaking good. So what the hell are we asking employees interested about? So that's where we can't just yell that at a business owner. I want to, but this is where we do some self-deprecation and be like, hey, Michelle, usually when I hear that, I just completely blew it. I miscommunicated the areas where we can positively impact your business and how we're going to get you there. The value that we provide has nothing to do or very little to do with employees being interested or even participating. In fact, we're the ones funding a benefit, so it's not really interested about interest at all. It does have everything to do with how we communicate, how we educate, and make sure that your people know that you care about them and you're giving them access to the same stuff that the big dogs do. Microsoft, LAUSV, LA County, Uber, are offering things like this. So whether 100% of them participate or none of them, they're still going to appreciate you and giving them access and education from a Fortune 500 company. So sorry about that. No, that was my mistake. Anyway, so the way that we do this in scope of work agreement, and then start closing them again. So that is my biggest one, Michelle, is you not falling for the trap of talking about employee interest because it's a trap. It's a definite
Absolutely.
trap.
So I'm going to share another way that very similar of how to overcome saying I don't think my employees will be interested, or don't think my employees can afford it. And it's going to be, hey, Michael, outside of your employees not being interested, is there anything else preventing you from moving forward?
Mm,
Is there anything
isolating.
else? I'm isolating it is because, it's such a surface level response, like a reflexive response because they want to say no. So you can either pull it back to the upfront contract first, go and then, or go down the route that you just shared, a positive impact, focusing what it does for the business, or you can do what I'm talking about. So there's three options when you get this objection, guys, right? The other, and then from you say, if I can offer you a positive impact, would you make it available to you and your team? From there, hey, Michael, earlier when we were having a conversation, when we were discussing that you were trying to hire and replace two employees, three employees, or you're trying to compete in this
Mhm.
marketplace, or you're trying to control cost, all of that, you go right back into what is that section? You're reinstating the problem in your guide. Now, what is the recommended action through a partnership with Apple? We're able to bring in increased compensation package or increase your compensation package, making you more competitive and attractive to those two people that you're trying to replace. You bring it right back to their priority. Then you put in a statistic that we, by the way, are on your site seller to drive it home. And the bottom line is you're going to be able to, again, go right back into saving some money with your, pre-tax savings through your payroll, as well as, we're going to help you get started in that benefits game. So right back into your guide. And all we focus on is what it does for the business,
Yeah.
not the focus of employees. So there's a couple different ways to overcome this one, but I think this is one of if not the top objections that our team has been getting out in the field.
So, well, Michelle and I, we try to spend a decent amount of the time out of the field. And the one that we always talk about is when an employer at the start of the meeting, and this is the gun to your head response, they're like, what do you guys do? And that's what a lot of the employer conversations do. We actually start our meetings and we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing. I love it. And then we sit down in the chair and then they ask, hey, so what do you do? We throw up a little bit, we start sweating, and then we start saying crazy things. We start saying like, "So we're gonna pay your employees cash in the event of illness or injury." And then they're like, "What?" And then they're like, "Okay, I'll see who's interested in cash for whatever the hell you're talking about." That is a lot of our conversations. Why do I know that? It's because I've done that 1,000 times as well. So when we're talking about that, what we're trying to get everybody to do in the organization, because this does work, is breathe and actually be like, you know what, let's absolutely dive into this. And you know what, for time purposes and all that stuff, let's just dive right into this. So at the end of this meeting, and literally just start going through the upfront contract and start and take them down the exact same path that you were going to, instead of going down the product thing. The product thing, the employee focus thing, it just is not what business owners are. That's not why they say yes to it. And I'm going to just drill this down of one final one, and this is where we started this conversation. So most business owners now, they are offering or beginning to offer voluntary benefits either through Aflac, a competitor, but even sometimes a payroll company will be like, "Hey, we can offer Aflac or we can offer one of these voluntary benefit companies, and but you know what? All we do is connect this through your payroll system." And most employers are like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's going to help me attract and retain employees. It's not them talking about product. It's actually them saying, hey, this is going to help you, thrive as a business owner. So I'm asking you all, de-Aflac yourself in one aspect because I love our products, they're amazing, but employees being interested has nothing to do with the reason why a lot of employers are going to offer Aflac and why they need it.
Yeah. Well said. You guys, all the tools that, as Michael previously mentioned, are inside the vault from our site seller, our scope of work, business overview cheat sheet, the handling objection, and PowerPoint that we shared as well is also in the vault under decision maker conversation. So check them out. Practice with your team. And as we said in a previous podcast, leveraging ChatGPT to be able to practice and give you some hard objections as well to get you prepped for your next meeting.
Absolutely. We have more overcoming objections. We have all this stuff right here in the vault under DM conversation. And Michelle, I wanted to ask you just one final closing one. For you, if there was just one action item that you wanted the team to leverage, use from this conversation, what would be that one action item?
Own overcoming objections, whether it's the time or the employee interest. Because I think if you can master how to overcome that, regardless of how you do your engage, discover, guide, you'll be able to overcome them and still move them onto that scope of work agreement.
Yes, absolutely.
How about you?
100%. We'll use led into it. It's actually using the scope of work agreement as a closing tool. And so if they're waffling, if they're like, okay, yeah, you know what, this sounds interesting, blah, blah, blah. It's like, great, let me show you how to get started and start closing with that scope of work agreement. That is the magic that just people like when you take control. People like confidence. People love a process. And I'm telling you, that bad boy will get you a ton of defined contributions if you get good at that. And hey, you may not have the confidence today, which leads to my second and final thing. If you do that with another person on your team again and again and again, watch the confidence because if you're hard on each other in practice, the rest of it gets okay. And the rest of it in real life is actually freaking easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And keep in mind, decision makers don't know what you're going to say.
Hello.
Hence why
Michelle,
it's harder in that practice.
exactly. All right, Michelle, I'm gonna let you close up shop for us on this special closing episode, and we'll probably do this one again. This was fun.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for joining the LA Legends. Remember, leverage the tools that we shared with you guys today and get some practice in so you can master and own that decision maker conversation. We'll see you guys next time on the LA Legends.